Құрметті қонақтар, біз 1 минуттан кейін бастаймыз. Уважаемые гости, уважаемые участники, мы начинаем.
So, dear friends, distinguished guests, we are going to start our session in a minute.
Уважаемые гости, прошу вас занять.
So, dear guests, please, we kindly ask you to take your seats. We are going to start.
Your Excellency Dr. Chung, Your Excellency Abdullah Mohammed Al-Mazrui, Excellencies, Ambassadors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our panel session and day 2 of the Astana International Forum. So I believe we have had a pretty amazing agenda with about 30 panel sessions today alone. 2 of the panel sessions were very, very high profile and very interesting, with Secretary General of the World Trade Organization and also CEO, global CEO of Total Energies. And we have had a lot of discussions touching upon the most important aspects shaping our world today, and that will shape our world in future. And now it's a great pleasure, and I'm very delighted to welcome you to our panel session on global challenges and new opportunities for business in Kazakhstan. And we are very, very happy to see so many of you, despite having a very, very hectic schedule, seeing so many of you today. And we would like to also welcome Mr. Batalov, the chairman of the National Chamber of Entrepreneurs, Atameken, with us. Thank you very much. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, let us start our panel session where we have prominent international and local experts and business leaders who will share us their views, their insights, their perspective, and their visions of the present and the future. They will discuss global challenges and new opportunities for modern business in Kazakhstan. This part of the forum will be moderated by Dr. Murat Karamsakov and Dr. Mark Uzan. I will briefly introduce them separately, as we will be having 2 panel sessions, part 1 and part 2, but they are the leading experts in business and international economic development. And also, please note that at the very end of our session, we will have a number of agreements and memorandums that will be signed with representatives of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and South Korea. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce you our moderator and our keynote speakers for our panel session on global challenges and opportunities. So we have Dr. Mark Uzan, who is the executive director and founder of the Reinventing Bretton Woods Committee that is internationally recognized for its work addressing issues related to the international financial architecture. He has edited several books on international finance, including most recently Bretton Woods, The Next 70 Years, and the 10 Years After. on the implications of the great financial crisis. Mr. Ozan has also authored academic papers on the new architecture for the international finance system and has written extensively about economics and finance in the popular press. Also with us, we are truly blessed of having really, truly world-class participants and speakers of our forum. Let me start with Dr. Rai Kwon-chung, who is the Nobel laureate and board director of the Ban Ki-moon Foundation for a Better Future. We have His Excellency Abdullah Mohammed Al-Mazroui, chairman of the Federation of Chambers of Commerce of the United Arab Emirates and chairman of the Abu Dhabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We have with us Mr. Nikola Popovich, chairman of the board of directors of Kazakh Holding and global head of Glencore Copper and Zinc Department. We have with us Mr. Hussein Ozhan, director, head of Kazakhstan at the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. We have with us Mr. Yernur Resmagambetov, the chairman of the management board of the administration of the Astana International Financial Center. And we also have with us Mr. Rafiz Abazov, PhD, former MDP project manager for sustainable development at the Columbia University and director of the Institute for Green and Sustainable Development of Krasnodar, our national agricultural university. So without further ado, I'm sure that you are all pretty excited to hear on the perspectives and visions of such a high-profile and world-leading experts in economic development and business and finance that we have with us here today. Let me pass the floor to our moderator, Dr. Mark Ozan. Dear Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, for these very kind introductions. First, for introducing the speakers and introducing myself. And we are very pleased here to be part of this important panel for this Astana International Forum. And we are going to try to lay out and to describe this session in two parts. The first part is clearly global challenges and opportunities. I think over the course of the last 24 hours, what we heard these days, and you learned about three words: deglobalization, fragmentation, de-risking. This is not the type of words and concept that we learned over the last 10 years when we were talking about integration. It's about bringing China to the global economy. It was about, bringing sure that we have sound and capital flow and sound global financial system. So we are now a new world where geopolitics is driven economics and not the other way around. So in order to try to lay out these global challenges, we have an excellent panel, and I will ask them two quick questions. First, do they agree with the current assessment that fragmentation, supply chain balkanization, de-risking are the new order of the day? And if this is the case, how they need to navigate these new uncharted territories? And the question number two will be clearly, well, when you have challenges, when you have risk, there are also opportunities. And in this context, what will be the opportunities, not only for Central Asia as a region, but also for Kazakhstan? So that's clearly the way we want to navigate this first part of the panel. After this, we will shift and we will ask my co-chairman, Murat Karmisfok, who will really dealing more with Kazakhstan companies, small and medium companies, and opportunities. So let me maybe kick off further conversation with Mr. Hussein Ozan, who is the director and the head of Kazakhstan of the EBRD. Clearly, first, to see clearly if he shares this assessment that indeed the global economy is really shifting toward the new uncertainties based on supply chain balkanization, from just in time to just in case, about resilience, and at the same time, it will be more costly indeed for business community because compliance is going to be more higher and we're going to see more challenges. Hussein is based here in Kazakhstan, so he's investing in this country, so he has, I think, a very good, strong perspective to see from the global perspective, but also from a national perspective, what has really changed since we have this poly-crisis, the war with Ukraine, climate change, pandemic. Under these new circumstances, we will ask him first to kick off the conversation. Hussein, please, and thank you for joining the panel today.
Thank you very much, Mark. I would like to start with thanking the organizers for a wonderful event, and I'm honored and it's a privilege for me to be here to share our perspectives with a focus on Kazakhstan. And thank you very much for giving the floor first to me, and maybe I can say that I partially agree with the assessment. For the past 30 years, definitely globalization has been on the agenda, and with the technical and technological innovation coupled with increased connectivity and also with the abundance of debt and capital in the global scale, and also again increased connectedness across the board, the situation was expansionary. However, we are seeing definitely more challenges. So what I would like to do in this first session, I'd like to set out, or I'd like to try to explain what the current setting is, and then give, from a global perspective, two identified challenges. So what is the current setting? So when we look at it, companies around the world are facing business unusual. Not business as usual, but business unusual, as they experience the aftershocks of the global pandemic, of course, and the effects of the war in Ukraine. Russia's invasion has resulted in the largest forcible displacement of people in Europe since the 1940s, where individuals and firms face unprecedented increases in the prices of energy and food. At the same time, supply chains continue to be upended by the COVID-19 pandemic. I can give the example for Kazakhstan. The borders with China has opened actually very recently. And the companies have accumulated record levels of debt, and often as a result of the loans issued on very favorable terms. So the cheap money was around for the longest time. Many firms have recently experienced major disruptions to their supply chains as well. For example, across EBRD countries, EBRD regions, EBRD countries of operations, we operate basically from Mongolia to Morocco in 38 different countries. And the firms have adjusted, of course, to this disruption, primarily by increasing their stocks of inputs, basically inventory, and also sourcing goods from larger numbers of suppliers as opposed to the single suppliers. So we can partially see the movement here. So the climate crisis, of course, is likely to bring more disruption to the system. After a decade of rising indebtedness and the shocks caused by the pandemic, corporate debt levels will continue to rise before leveling on. And connected to this, the evergreening of cheap loans to vulnerable firms represent also significant risks for the system, where it creates something called zombie firms. And that can also create, that will also have spillover effects for the healthy companies as well. Undercapitalized and combined with some of the state-owned banks also have quite a bit of incentives to support these zombie firms, as do the banks in countries where insolvency frameworks are also relatively weak. So the NPL management is going to be also important. And across the EBRD regions, I'd like to reiterate that unprecedented increases, especially in the food and energy prices, have been observed. So what are the most important newly introduced challenges? I would like to focus on two challenges from a global perspective. Number one is the global supply chains, which are continuing to be in turbulence. Technological advances have incentivized the firms to spread production across borders, with many choosing to specialize in particular tasks rather than manufacturing the entire product. So consequently, trade in intermediary goods have increased quite a lot, and for around half of the global trade as of 2020. EBRD economies, on average, are more intertwined in global supply chains than the typical middle-income countries. So if you look at the trade theory, it suggests that specialization should be done on the basis of the comparative advantage, and that is the optimal side. And policymakers are often concerned about the vulnerability it raises. And this also supports the arguments. And in the last few years, we have seen considerable disruption to trade with the causes that I explained recently. So we have done last year, as EBRD, we have carried out a big survey. And that survey showed that more than 3/4 of the firms participating in the global supply chains have taken steps to boost the resilience, not the efficiency, but the resilience of their supply chains. And with the most common measure being increasing the inventories, and followed by the diversification of their supply base, predominantly using new suppliers from different regions as well. So despite pandemic-related disruption, relatively few firms, for example, used focused suppliers or focused countries. Given the frequency of the extreme weather, we need to also talk about the changes in the climate. Extreme weather, firms may experience such disruption more often in the future, as well as having to deal with the new policies seeking to mitigate the impact of this climate change. For example, firms exporting aluminum or steel or other products into the EU will also soon be exposed to CBAM, which is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, a price correction that will be applied at the border, which seeks to level the playing field as regards to effective carbon price faced by the EU and non-EU producers. While awareness of this initiative remains limited to our countries, in our regions mainly, economies, producers, and need to have better green management practices, which also needs to be assessed on their carbon intensity levels. And the second big challenge that I want to also focus on from a global point of view is the corporate debt and the business dynamism. After a decade of rising corporate indebtedness, as you know, after the crisis, significant measures to increase the monetary supply, abundance of money, basically an abundance of credit, firm-level debt is at record levels, especially when we look at the regions that we operate in. The onset of the pandemic was a major shock, of course, to the global economy, and this triggered an extraordinary decline in the activity of considerable uncertainty also for the businesses. The vast majority of the firms in our region suffered substantial negative cash flow shocks, while day-to-day banking operations were also disrupted, making it difficult for the lenders like us or the other commercial banks or the universal banks to assess the viability of these firms. Policymakers, of course, responded to this, taking far-reaching steps to help businesses navigate this pandemic. Many firms benefited from the deferral of the loan payments. Some received repayment holidays being mandated by the governments, and which put additional burden on the banks as well. And some of them are offered by the banks as a voluntary measures. So largely as a result of this generous support provided by the government, corporate defaults are currently also at their record low levels. This is uncharacteristic, of course, on the recessions in general. A significant number of firms with weak financial performance indicators have constant access to cheap and often subsidized credit. And such evergreening loans to vulnerable firms is a concern as the zombie firms. Indebted companies are in distress, and to avoid the default, thanks to their continued access to cheap funding, create negative spillovers for the firms. And strong firms see lower investment, revenue, and employment. Even they operate in sectors with more zombie firms. So such negative spillovers are particularly pronounced along the supply value chain. So these two challenges actually feeding each other. So at the end of the day, the undercapitalized and state-owned banks have stronger incentives to keep these zombie firms alive, not to write losses, as do the banks where the insolvency frameworks are often negatively impacted. So I will leave it here for now, supply chains and the overfinancing in the last decade. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Let's move on now to our next speaker, Mr. Abdullah Mohamed Ali Ghanem Al-Mazuri. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for being with us. If we agree, we give everyone 5 minutes as we need to move after to the next round. We lay out here clearly the vulnerabilities of the current state of the global economy, but also vulnerability and challenges, but also opportunities. If you are here today, it means that you believe that there are opportunities between where you are coming from and also Kazakhstan. Two main lead exporters commodities, but we see more and more a new geography in the global economy, new alliances, new opportunities. Do you see more and more potential between where you are coming from, UAE and Kazakhstan? If this is the case, is it a time maybe to think about more regional potential between these two regions? Please, over to you. And thank you for joining.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be with you today. The topics we are discussing here are of importance to all the business community around the world. We'll try to be precise. With the ongoing digital revolution, adapting new technological has been necessary to achieve operational success and improve efficiency and competitiveness. This has put pressure on business to undergo a digital transformation in order to enhance their operation and keep up with the latest developments trends. We're also seeing an increase in market competition, which makes it more challenges for business to establish their position in the market and to penetrate new markets. All of these elements have impacted doing business over the last few years. As such, we have launched a new strategy recently which aims to empower the private sector in the United Arab Emirates and to support it by reaching its full potential in a competitive business environment by facilitating trade exchange opportunities and providing seamless digital services. As part of our commitment to digital transformation, we have adopted an innovative approach to drive trade exchange. The Chamber of the Emirates has announced its B2B matching platform, a digital platform that supports companies to uncover new business opportunity, build business network, find a new business solution, and elevate profile. The Chamber has also proud to say that it is 100% digital chamber, which means that all our services can be rendered online. This demonstrates our commitment in incorporating advanced technologies to meet the requirement of different businesses seamlessly and effectively. It's important for the private and public sector to collaborate to mitigate the fragmentation of a global economy and drive the transition to a net zero economy. The Abu Dhabi Chamber is proud to be policy advocator, serving as a conduit between the UAE government and the private sector, passing the sector voice to the government. As part of its role policy advocator, the Chamber provides businesses a platform to communicate challenges, suggest ideas, and collaborate on matters that will enhance the economy. The Chamber also influences policies, regulations, and other decisions that serve its interest of business and support the private sector in understanding complex regulation and making required changes to comply with them. We're also proud to lead the private sector committees and liaise directly with the government partners to alleviate and resolve pressing matters and issues that are experienced within the private sector. As a side of this, we always ensure collaborating with other nations to bring benefits to different parties and drive sustainable economic development. Regarding accelerating a net zero economy, the UAE is working towards establishing its position as a leader in sustainability. In 2021, the UAE announced its net zero by 2050 strategic initiative, which centers on achieving a net zero emissions by 2050. Many companies in Abu Dhabi, including the Chamber, have integrated sustainability into their agenda in line with the net zero by 2050 strategic initiative. This is done by putting an additional focus on utilizing resources more efficiently, reducing impact on climate change, reducing air and noise pollution, conserving water resources, and contributing to a better quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned net zero economy and you mentioned really the involvement of the private sector. So this is clearly a challenge, but this is an opportunity. In 3 weeks in my country, in France, there will be an important summit to really look at the way we are going to finance and providing funds for developing countries to reach net zero economy. And we know that the multilateral development banks, funds will not be enough. So private sector will be needed to achieve net zero economy. So the key issue here is going to be about de-risking to make sure that companies like yours and Chamber of Commerce who are representing these companies will be able indeed to invest in net zero economies. So Professor Chung, you have been thinking for many years about how we can advance and how we can mobilize and do whatever it takes for reaching net zero economy and for building a green growth strategy, not only here in Kazakhstan, but at the global level. Over to you, and clearly what should be the role of the private sector, because this is clearly not only the objective, but the main mission for all of us to make sure that we're going to reach that goal. Right, Chong, please.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to joining this very important session. And I agree with the first observation that Mark has made, that the intensification of the current fragmentation will probably continue for a foreseeable time, because the driving force of the current situation of fragmentation is the free market competition. And this free market competition is intensifying the cutthroating competition and the winner-take-all or victory at any cost. That kind of attitude is prevailing, becoming a new paradigm. So I think for the time being, this kind of fragmentation will continue. The remedy for this kind of situation is that we need to understand this kind of extreme competition and extreme short-termism. Competition means short-term profit and the short-term cost cutting down. So the short-termism will, in the long run, will be more costly, and we can benefit by focusing on long-term and collaboration. So this is my expectation that we can turn around the current fragmentation towards another re-globalization. So this can be the basis for the framework where the climate agenda is falling down. because as the competition and the short-termism is intensifying, the global agenda, climate change agenda, the priority is falling down and down. Already, the priority of climate change agenda is missing, and in the world media coverage is going down. So we need to, in order to make this net zero as an opportunity, then we have to work together by the government, private sector, more importantly, the consumers have to join together in sharing the responsibility. At the moment, we are only focusing on government and the business to share the major of the responsibility for net zero. Very critical missing element is the consumers. Consumers' contribution is missing here. Unless consumers are buying green product and green energy, how can government and the business can promote green energy and green product and net zero? So here, the three pillars of government, business, and then consumer has to work together to internalize the carbon price into our production and consumption. But we are only focusing on, at the moment, just mobilizing money from government and investors. But this money has to come from the bottom up, from the individuals and the consumers. In order to do that, we need to internalize the carbon price into our production and consumption. But this should be done very gradually so that the positive impact for technological innovation, new business opportunity can be maximized, while the negative impact, the cost and burden on the people and the business has to be minimized. So the smart intervention by the government for the policy framework and also business proactive engagement or understanding with the government to promote this kind of carbon pricing approach, as well as understanding by the consumers to buy and pay and share the responsibility. All three elements has to go hand in hand together to realize the opportunity for net zero is offering. I don't have time to go over the detailed policy options. We just launched this book just in the conference center, New Kazakhstan, and steering the step amid the global turmoil. So here I wrote an article, the specific policy options like voluntary, personal determined contribution, or shadow price of carbon, national carbon accounting. There are many ways of doing it. But in order to promote this kind of policy options, I think the business has to understand it and has to work very closely with the government in promoting this kind of innovative policy options. And I was in Mastara last February. The Mastara is a very interesting and a very successful example, long-term investment and the long-term perspective is going to pay off better and more in the long run. So even Kazakhstan can learn from Mastara example. Why don't Mastara 2 can be established in Kazakhstan? So in order to do that, it has to be done in cooperation with government and the business and consumer support. So I start here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me move on now to Mr. Nikola Popovic. Nikola, thank you for being with us. When the war erupted in February, one country was on the limelight, was clearly Germany. And why? Because people realized that Germany's dependency is toward Russian gas, dependency toward China for growth, and dependency with the US for security. So commodities are becoming more and more geopolitical and more and more driven by geopolitical consideration. So in your business, are you seeing, this geopolitics that is becoming more and more important, that you are dealing also with countries who want to reduce dependencies, and how you navigate all these new trends and maybe also new opportunities? Please, over to you, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. It is a very interesting question. To start off by reverting to your question, how has the paradigm changed globally? We've had decades where the world was converging to a single standard, where the WTO movement meant that tariffs were converging towards a single standard. Government subsidies were diminishing for specific industries. So the ability of governments to pick winners was on the decline for several decades. we also had a situation where the reduction of tariffs meant that taxation became closer linked in various jurisdictions. So it left the government effectively with the interest rate as the main policy instrument with which to direct the state of the economy. Now, what I believe has changed quite radically is that if previously the state was, the world was moving in a direction, today it has set a destination. The net zero scope has meant that everybody has a sight of where they want to arrive. And that marks a very big move away from the previous world order in that respect. Because we have now a situation where the state is competing for resources and for direction with other states. So some countries have more money available, others have resources. So in a world where you face challenges because you either have the legacy of your carbon footprint, so not every country has the same gradient of a hill which they need to climb. Not every country has the same status of its budget and funds available to stimulate growth in its sector. So every country will have differing degrees of complexity how to get there. It's difficult for everyone. Now, what we see in commodities is that once governments have declared that as part of the ESG drive, the electrification drive is one which is heavily commodity intensive. So it drives the same pursuit of commodities in every part of the world. Now, where the response is different is because not every country can arrive there at the same time. So we've seen at one extreme China, who through its organization of the economy has the ability to coordinate its actions much more closely than others do who rely on a more free market mechanism. So what that means when one player captures a larger portion of the resources that are available, it drives a geopolitical response in that people get nervous, countries get nervous that they'll be left behind. We also see that, that the technological challenge that one faces, that we're dealing with new industries, new solutions, whether it's generation of electricity, whether it's the battery aspect of building new vehicles, requires countries and companies to respond very quickly in terms of what technologies they will build to rise to the occasion. That's not easy. It's almost impossible for companies to encapsulate the whole range of changes that need to be done. If you're a car manufacturer, do you make batteries? If you make batteries, do you go into the chemical production, which is a different skill set? Do you go into metal refining? Do you go into mining? These are challenges which people never used to set themselves before. But now in this new paradigm, companies who are forced to make huge investments today to be compliant with the net zero scope will obviously be much more concerned about the supply chain and what that does. Now for various countries will have to find different responses. In the case of Kazakhstan, we have an economy which relied heavily on fossil fuels. The fact that we, from a Kazakh perspective, that we now have to look at how does the ESG decarbonization move get quantified. I think today we're living in a world where we see the direction, we see the road signs, but we don't see the distance, figuratively speaking. So it's one thing if you see the direction where you're supposed to drive, which is the challenge. Now the opportunity would be if you knew what is the distance to your goal. That is when you can quantify your competitive advantages and focus on the segments of economy which you want to further. Now, what I believe is that today we have a direction, but there's still no clear pathway towards how do you quantify the decarbonization. So do we end up in a situation where rather than focusing on scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, do we end up focusing on upstream scope 3? If we were to focus on upstream scope 3, then you would be able to look at your inputs and quantify your carbon footprint versus a fiscal rate hurdle which you have to overcome. That would be a more self-governing system in the world, and that's what I believe may happen going forward. But we're not there yet. So the challenge and opportunity, as I said, is that we all need to change. None of us can keep playing the music from the old sheet music. We all have to adjust. Now, the question is, how do you get there? That is going to be the biggest opportunity where some will succeed, some will fail. It's an exciting opportunity. I believe that for Kazakhstan, the opportunity is that it has a huge territory for renewable energy that is a massive benefit over what other countries have. It also has the benefit for moving from intermittent to renewable to baseload energy. It still has the lesser evil of natural gas, which is becoming more expensive everywhere in the world, but Kazakhstan is getting cheaper because geopolitically it's becoming more challenging to export it out of the country. So there are opportunities where Kazakhstan can transform itself and rise to the occasion. So.
Thank you very much. I think so far when I look at what our speakers are laying out, I think can be summarized in two ways. Clearly, urgency with climate change and also transformation of national economies. And they are not just, despite the current geopolitical considerations, these are going to be the big priorities, but also we saw it, big opportunities. But in order to do that, we might need also to go to I will call a Schumpeterian revolution and to transform also our global financial system. So here we have with us Yernur Razimakbetov, who is the chairman of the management board of the AIFC, to clearly see also if there is also some reflections at AIFC, clearly how the financial system need to adapt, to accompany, this net zero economy. Yernur, over to you, 5 minutes, please, as we need to move quickly to the next round before I give the floor to Rafis. Thank you.
Yeah, can I? Thank you very much, Mark. I'll try to keep it short. I'll try to expand my speech into the topic. First of all, I would like to talk about the challenges, then some perspectives that we see in AFC, and some of the opportunities for the local businesses. So in terms of the challenges, you can put the next slide, I'll just use one slide so that you have a map. So in terms of, next one. Yeah. So in terms of challenges, I guess we're talking about the same thing, but just to clarify maybe to the audience, to the speakers, and to the experts. We from Kazakhstan face the following challenges. So first of all, we have our own local issues. I'm not going to talk about them because it's an international forum. But also we have some regional issues and we have some global issues. So any business in Kazakhstan has to operate in this almost like a three-dimensional environment. So, and before we were pushed towards globalization, saying that, oh, you have to be global, and almost all these three dimensions used to move in almost the same direction. But nowadays we see that they're not moving always in the same direction, so the business have to maneuver between what is needed locally, what is needed regionally, and what is needed globally. So there's different risks, different challenges. You mentioned about the environment, ESG. There was mention about carbon tax that our exporters could be charged. And there's also some regional issues that we have and the local. So this is the environment, I would say, that the Kazakhstan business is operating. So what do we see as a perspective from the AFC side? So of course there is different views on what to do. There's a lot of recommendations. There's a lot of discussions. And the forums like this actually really help us to get different perspective. I'll just share some of the ideas that we have in AFC. So first of all, if you look at the Kazakhstan, everybody agrees that we have a strong fundamentals. Everybody's talking about our resources, everybody's talking about our land, and also everybody's talking about human capital. So everybody knows Kazakhstan has a big potential, but what do you make out of it? So how do you invest? How do you tap into it? So that has been the question, I guess, over the past 5 years, 10 years, every forum, everybody discuss, okay, we understand. Kazakhstan is a great country, so what do we do with it? So I guess if you look at the past 30 years of development, there has been a period when we opened up the economy. We call it the start of the investment cycle. It was maybe the end of 90, middle of 2000s, when we were very open, just right before the financial crisis. We had a double-digit growth. We had a lot of international investors coming in. We have a lot of international businesses operating in Kazakhstan. But what happened after the financial crisis, different economies use different terminology. Some of them call it decade of deleveraging. Some of them call it lost decade. But after the financial crisis, what we have been doing, we have been deleveraging, gradual deleveraging. And now everybody knows that the credit levels are quite low. So we have gone through that. And now what's going on in Kazakhstan, we believe that it's a start of a new investment cycle. That we would like to invite not just the local business, but also international businesses to participate in that. So this is maybe like a one in a 10, 20, or 30-year cycle that is happening in Kazakhstan. So forums like this, I guess, is meant to invite international community to participate in this investment cycle. But what have we forgotten as the local businesses? We have forgotten how to build partnerships, how to build effective partnerships with international businesses. We either want to do it ourselves, or we either want international business to come and do it. So one of the things that we promote as AAFC is joint ventures, partnerships, local and global. We believe this combination of local knowledge and also the international expertise can actually provide a lot of interesting opportunities. And Mark, you're very right that before we used to be trying to be globally best, but now it's not enough to be regionally best. So we don't need to compete globally anymore because the world is becoming fragmented, as you mentioned. The world is becoming regionalized. So you can be regionally best for the business, and that should be more than enough to be successful. So just summarizing my point, I believe that a lot of opportunities lies in building effective partnerships between the local and the international businesses. I'll stop here just for the sake of time, but if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer.
Thank you. Last but not least, let's go to our final speaker for this first round of conversation and ask Rafis Abazov, who is with us. So Rafis, you are going to first to ask and to tell us if you share the assessment about where we see in terms of challenges, but also how digitalization can also be a very good opportunity for the region. Rafi, over to you, please.
Thank you very much. You asked two questions, and I tried to go with bullet points. 2 bullet points for first question and a couple of bullet points for second question. When we talk about globalization, one of the driving force of globalization was digital transformation. In a way, because many countries, let me put it like decision-making level, government officials, business like representatives, didn't want to be left behind. They wanted to be in the global driving force to get technologies, technology transfer, and latest ideas how to move forward businesses. And digital transformation offers new ways of doing old style businesses and new business models. So a lot of people, when they said support globalization, said yes, we support in order not to be left behind to get latest technologies. But what's happened over the past 2 years, many rules of globalization were broken. And here we have what we call digital divide. When we talk about digital divide, very often we refer that certain countries more advanced in technologies, others less advanced. But now there is one more angle, like paradigm change in digital divide. Some countries say, look, this technology is only for us. We would like to share with some our partners, but not with others. And this leads to digital divide when many countries start rethinking their way of accepting globalization and dealing with globalization. And unfortunately, some countries, when they have access to technologies, they say, who are with us will share technologies, who are not with us will not share technologies. And here we have like situation when decision makers are in hot waters, in very difficult situation. We don't want, I believe businesses don't want to take sides. They would like to do business, but unfortunately they have to make decision about this digital divide. So, and second part of your question. Yes, digital transformation contributes a lot to making world more connected, to make businesses more successful, and what my previous predecessor said, localizing businesses to the realities of a country or a region. Let's talk about, I have like long list of points, but let's stop on the first 3. Guys, do we have smartphones? Those who have smartphones, can you raise your hands? Probably everyone has smartphones. And recently we had a discussion. Look, your smartphones are robots in your hands. Probably I downloaded a couple of ChatGPTs, you download ChatGPTs. Basically, having robots in your hands, you have powerful means of dealing with all kind of challenges, whatever you have. And this, our robots or artificial intelligence already changing and will change the way how we connect to others, how we connect our businesses, and how we connect our individuals to global community. So this is moving us again, helping globalization. However, at the same time, we have to deal with big data. But unfortunately, regulation in many parts of the world, at national level and regional level, says no. You cannot transfer data, you cannot get access to big data from one country to another. You could see like a recent development in European Union which prohibits Amazon.com to move the data from European Union to United States. Unfortunately, it's happening and it affects the way how people deal, how multinational companies do business. And this is kind of leads to breaking down globalization into regional camps and regional like groups. And maybe one more point, and it'll be final point for me. Let me talk about capacity building. Capacity building, because when we talk about capacity building, we have a couple of angles. One angle is how businesses use digital transformation, new technology in doing business, and how we create new technologies, how we move to using new technologies in our everyday business. That particular development leads to a difficult situation. Again, of course, business people would like to have access to technologies. They would like to adapt technologies to local realities. But unfortunately, global situation right now, not geoeconomics, but geopolitics dictate the way how we do capacity building at the business level, at the individual level, and national level. Here, let me stop, and if you have any questions, any comments, if you disagree with me, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Well, let's do the following now, if you all agree. We are going to move and to shift to the next set of panel, regional challenges and opportunities, that will be chaired by Murat, who are going to take their seat, and hopefully at the end, Murat can ask these speakers also if there are any questions directly to them. Let me take this occasion to thank all of you for joining this panel. Clearly, opportunities in front of us despite all the risks that we are facing. And this is an important time. Thanks for the organizer of the Astana International Forum and the Chamber of Commerce to bring all of us here together. We look forward to the second round of the panel. Over to you, Chairman.
Yep. Thank you very much, Dr. Mark. Dear speakers, thank you so much for your valuable inputs. Dear ladies and gentlemen, with this we conclude our first part, but please do stay on your seats. We will have a change of our honored speakers, and then we'll straightly go ahead into this second part of our panel session. And I really want to thank our dear speakers who were truly world-class, but also regionally best. And I think there were some really exciting points that were made during the speech. And now we will be very happy to shift to the regional challenges. Please, dear speakers, Mr. Raimbek Batalov, Chairman of the Presidium of the National Chamber of Entrepreneurs of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Atamiken. Mr. Rifat Mustafa, President of the Turkic Union of Chambers. Please. Dear colleagues, dear speakers. Dear speakers, Renat Анович, прошу вас, проходите места. The Vice President of the Turkic Union of Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Wang, the Executive Director of the China Central Asia Common Future Research Center and the CITIC Reform and Development Research Foundation. Mr. Nurdaulet Aidosov, the Chairman of the Board of Jusan Bank. Mr. Sergei Stanovkin, Head of BBC Global News in Eurasia and partner of Dars Consulting. And Mr. Danil Ibraev, President of the Kyrgyz Union of Manufacturers and Entrepreneurs. Dear distinguished speakers, please take your seats. Да, уважаемые гости, уважаемые коллеги.
Dear colleagues, please take your seats.
I think we had an absolutely amazing part one where we discussed the tailwinds, but also the headwinds that are facing and shaping the global challenges and opportunities. And again, we've had a very, very high-profile world-class panel of speakers that we had the opportunity to tap into their brains and get their perspective and vision. So now, as agreed, we're shifting to a regional dimension. And we're going to talk about regional challenges and opportunities. And I'm very delighted and happy to give the floor to our moderator for this panel session, Dr. Murat Karamsakov. He's the president of the Eurasian Economists Club of Scientists Association, and he's also advisor to the chairman of the management board of our Atamekan National Chamber of Entrepreneurs. Dr. Murat, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marat. Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much, dear guests.
Наших предыдущих
I would like to thank our previous speakers for this professional and very interesting vision of the global finance challenges that we have currently, and Kazakhstan as the integrated part of the global economy. The processes that are necessary to implement by government, by business associations in order to increase the competitiveness of our republic, in order to adopt the business association. In this regard, we have to make a good homework together with the government, business, in order to implement new approaches to develop a business, in order to enhance the competitiveness of financial structures, to provide access and guarantee transparency of real economy, real business. And here, the role of business associations raises. Dear participants, please allow me to introduce you our speaker that we all know very well, not only in business circles, Rainbek Anvarovich, who has been protecting the interests of business for many years, and today being the head of a serious structure, Atamekan, makes together with the government a big work. So, Mr. Rainbek, please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Murat. I would like to thank everyone once again. The previous speakers said a lot of good things, and especially Nick Popovich, that big business, global business, huge business, that in general there are serious changes that are happening at the global market. We can see that paradigm is changing, and we see that in general the form of globalization is changing. It becomes more and more regional. And if we look at the investments, we realize that there are two sides of investments: global business, which comes and selects the country, that looks at the world as a whole, as a common market, and it can be Latin America, it can be Africa, it can be Asia, where the conditions are the most favorable. So international business goes and invests in that region. It depends on the conditions that are created in the country. So it depends on how these countries are interesting. The second category of investors include local, national businesses that at any conditions invest in their country. the point is the same. The powerful dynamics of investments goes when there are conditions for that. This is very important for Kazakhstan, because Kazakhstan, and it was already mentioned a lot of times, has a lot of potential, a lot of opportunities in different sectors of economy. First of all, the raw materials sector. We are a raw materials country, and we now see that the global market is changing, and Kazakhstan becomes a very interesting country, having a lot of natural resources. And it depends on us if we make this industry investment attractive. In order to make it attractive, we need to have a stable tax legislation. We are seriously now working on this, on tax legislation. We understand that this specific infrastructure should be created. We tell about the issue that we need to define focuses. For example, if we talk about the raw materials sector, we need to have an open data about the geological service. So first of all, we need to resolve these issues. We understand that we need to have legal reform, court reform, because it is impossible to attract business without this. And the court and legal reform is under consideration at a serious level. National Chamber is participating in this process very actively. We are we have a unique location between big markets, and of course Kazakhstan has a potential of transit economy. And of course we see that the goods and services flow, the development of transport and logistics issues become more and more relevant. And these are the possibilities to invest in transport and logistics, and it becomes more and more interesting. And it is important for us to have the platforms like Central Asia, China, and other platforms in Central Asia, in Europe, the platform Central Asia, Europe, Central Asia, Middle East, to look at the transport and logistics from the point of view of regional interests and invest in the projects that are bottleneck now, that preserve the turnover of goods and transportation of goods. Of course, Kazakhstan has a lot of area, and Kazakhstan has a possibility to produce a lot of agricultural products. This is interesting from the agricultural point of view. In general, I think that these opportunities should be implemented. We need to work actively on this.
Thank you so much. And let me just ask you a brief question and a brief answer I want to receive. So in your opinion, what are the main factors for growth, and what is the we know that availability of financing is very important as well, right? Yes, for sure. The availability of funding is an important critical issue. We do have different development institutes, state development institutes, some programs that would subsidize the interest rate. We have also second-tier banks that are involved in it. And we understand that there are some specific challenges as well, because, you know, bank rates that we have now, they are still high, and it's difficult for us to make business and to invest having all of this. But it is important to be integrated into the international financial system, and so that our range would be broader. We have lots of funds, there are lots of funds, lots of funding tools that could be used, and I think we need to expand these funding sources. Yes, some syndicated loans, leasing, factoring. I mean, lots of work is ahead. Thank you so much, Mr. Reinbeck. Welcome, welcome. We want to say welcome to our forum. And now I would like to give the floor to our speaker, to the Vice President of Turkic Chamber. And I would like to congratulate you with a successful election of President of Turkey, and also congratulate you that Mustafa Iratu was appointed as a President of Chamber of Turkey. So the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Selçuk Öztürk. I am the Vice President of the Union of Chambers and Commodity Exchange of Turkey, also Chairman of Konya City Chamber of Commerce, which is located in Inner Anatolian region. Our union had elections last week. We have new board, and our President, Mr. Rıfat Sarıklıoğlu, is not able to attend this important forum. I convey his best regards and wish of success. I am very pleased to address you today on behalf of TOBB. I would like to congratulate the government of Kazakhstan, organizers, and Atamekan for organizing this forum. As the international community moves towards an era of growing polarization and geopolitical division, we strongly support the position of Kazakhstan, where is the home of dialogue, tolerance, and land of opportunities. Kazakhstan is a key partner for Turkey in this region. As a brotherly country, the business community of Turkey, we are proud of the success of Kazakhstan. Our bilateral trade volume, which started with $30 million in 1992, increased 105 times and reached at $5 billion. Our country is among the top 5 countries in Kazakhstan's trade and foreign direct investment. More than 3,000 Turkish companies are registered in Kazakhstan. Our contractors completed the 500 projects approaching $30 million valued. From an institutional point of view, we conveyed the successful experiences of the Turkish private sector, TOBB, to the Kazakhstan National Chamber of Entrepreneurs, Atamekan. Together with Atamekan, we have organized many training and experience sharing programs with our Kazakh brothers, and we believe today Kazakhstan chamber system has become one of the most successful chamber systems in the region. We jointly established the Turk-Kazakh Chamber of Commerce and Industry Forum to boost our bilateral economic and trade relations. In addition, our multidimensional cooperation continues. In 2017, we signed MOU in Astana to establish the Union of Turk Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Kazakhstan is a strategically important country in the middle corridor of the Silk Road. This is another area where we should work together. I am confident that the discussions here will help to find common ground and policy solutions so that meaningful system reforms can be undertaken. Thank you very much. Rahmet.
Thank you so much. Мне хотелось бы передать
Now I would like to give the floor to Dr. Van. Welcome here. You are the recognized specialist, and you are the head of a very serious research institute on the development of Central Asian states and China. And I would like to hear from you more details about the perspectives that you see in our cooperation. Thank you. Dear Mr. Chairman, dear entrepreneurs, dear experts, hello. For me, it's a great honor to be invited to this forum. China is the nearest neighbor, and we have the established relations, strategic partnership relations. So For China, Kazakhstan is also one of the priority sectors, and so that to strengthen our cooperation, first of all, we need to understand the ideas. We have one initiative, one road, one belt. So modernization in Chinese style represents itself as a development way which corresponds to the conditions. We have this initiative, One Belt, One Road, which is the proposal of China in assisting sustainable development of global economy. So this initiative has a very spiritual meaning, and it will facilitate development. The modernization in the Chinese style and One Belt, One Road, these two programs, they have progressive nature and they facilitate to the development of production facilities. The strategic goals of China are to implement the potential in the development and the expansion of mutually beneficial cooperation. We are against such acts of economic hegemony, and we do not support that idea that some economic crises would be established, and we do not support unilateral sanctions. So our programs, One Belt, One Road, and modernization in Chinese style, they are focused on the harmony, and they cover all the areas where we could reach the mutual progress. We don't want to create this vicious circle that would lead to vicious competition and to violent conflicts. When we speak about harmony, we see harmony in 5 sectors. First of all, this is the harmony in the development way. We are for the fact that countries would develop in accordance with their own national conditions. We do not support when the development model is forced for the implementation in some other countries. So we don't want other countries would made us to use their development way, because only on our own we know our way. Because we understand that some countries would like to convince us to use their mechanisms, and they would try to manipulate some other countries. The second harmony is the social harmony. Modernization in Chinese style and the initiative One Belt, One Road, they are assisting and promoting social justice and intensifying the general or common well-being of the people. We need to speak about polarization, because sometimes we can see the situation when the national sovereign and safety issues will be under threat in some specific conditions. The third harmony is a material harmony. I mean the wealth. The wealth will provide for spiritual development, but it's not the same as spiritual well-being. Sometimes some countries are lagging behind, but they would go forward through export of resources, but sometimes they cannot really modernize their facilities. So when we speak about the spiritual civilization and some other features, they could give some impetus to the flourishing. So that's why China wish to have expanded cultural exchanges. Number 4 harmony is a harmony between nature and the person. Some countries sometimes are using investment needs and some gaps in regulatory framework. So we know that sometimes the factory and industries are developing, but we see the harm to the environment. That's why we are saying that this is wrong way. The sustainable development economy cannot be done through the damage to health of people. That's why right now China has a plan. By 2030, we want to reach carbon neutrality by 2060, and by 2030 we want to decrease our emissions. So we want to build the new Silk Road, and we are ready to share our experience in green development and in achieving technological advancing. And the harmony number 5 is the harmony in international relations. Modernization in Chinese style is the way of peaceful development. We are for settlement of disputes. We are for equal justice. We are for addressing and resolving of international conflicts through different humanitarian assistance, through economic cooperation. We are ready with other countries to protect this development sphere. The heads of China and the heads of Central Asian states decided to build this Chinese Central Asian community. What it means? It means that Chinese-Kazakhstani cooperation in this business area sees lots of opportunities. For the long-term cooperation, it is necessary not only to comply with local rules and laws, but also we need to have the adequate and relevant moral qualities and spirit of entrepreneurship. We need to take into account also the social, cultural, and environmental factors. Our Citigroup company in Kazakhstan started its establishment from oil production, but then our company started to deal with financing, with construction, and we also contribute a lot to the social development of Kazakhstan. That's why our company received the recognition from the government of Kazakhstan. The research fund of the development, which is headed by the former chairman of CITIC management, Mr. Khondan, this is the State Analytical Center, and our organization is ready to provide all the necessary support for the development of Chinese-Kazakhstani relations and cooperation between Chinese and Kazakhstani entrepreneurs. And finally, I would like to wish the participants of our forum all the best wishes and successes. And I wish our entrepreneurs to have the fruitful cooperation. Thank you very much.
Dr. Wan, thank you for your speech. You have a wonderful Russian language. Thank you. Dear participants, please allow me to introduce our next speaker, Nurdaulet Aidosov, Chairman of Zhusan Bank. We would like to thank you for the support of our panel session, and we hope for long-term cooperation under your managing. So, bank is one of the leaders of our banking system, and could you please describe about the unique opportunities that the bank is providing in order to develop small and medium enterprises, about the unique mechanisms and tools of the bank? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen.
Who really work with the businesses, so we feel the business requirements. And today I'm going to show you some very positive information statistics, excuse me, the information and importance of delivering the information to the small and medium enterprise, to any kind of businesses, and of course the usage of data, big data. So on previous session, there were some discussions about data, data science. So we'll show you how we apply this while working with businesses. So let's talk about the statistics. What is the contribution of the SME to the GDP of Kazakhstan? And you can see the remarkable growth for the last 5 years on 10%. And if you compare these statistics of Kazakhstan vis-a-vis emerging markets, so we are higher than emerging markets on the same 10%. But of course, there are lots to do to reach the level of the developed countries. So as you can understand, there's a certain help on this statistic, help from the government, from DAMU, from our most valued IFIs, such as EBRD, and some other institutions who gives their input to the growth of the SME. And on the next slide, you can see actual growth of the loan provision facilitated by the DAMU and banks. So again, for the last 3 years, the post-pandemic period, we see that the banks are facilitating the businesses more and more, and this gives the certain impact on the growth of the GDP of the country. And let's talk about the GDP per capita. The Kazakhstan is actually way above the neighboring countries, apart from China, of course. Yeah, and we're in between currently Poland and Mexico in the input of SME comparing CP per income per capita, but lots to do. And at the next benchmark, we take the Western European developed countries for us to go after on the statistics. And now, let's talk about the SME. What the current second-tier banks give to the local SMEs, to the businesses. I think it's very similar to in all countries. For instance, in Kazakhstan, it was very common to provide the products such as payments, cards, loans, and so on, classic banking products. But nowadays, our bank and some other banks on the market as well provide non-banking services that we call beyond banking, where we give online accounting, cloud-based ERP systems, documents for business, open IP, some statistics we call PFM, and information as OSIM is our business magazine that I'll talk about more. And of course, as a banker, you would question me, do we charge anything for these products? No, we don't. We deliver the value because we treat the success, our success is built by the success of our clients. So we make sure that our clients concentrate more, focus more on their core business rather than some other noises that they have to deal with. For instance, online accounting that we provide, it's very, very essential for those entrepreneurs that just start the business, micro and small enterprises, that we give them the facilities. We help them with the tax payments, and 910 form is very specific in Kazakhstan, but we help them for the preparation of that form so that they concentrate more on their business. Secondly, as I said, the information matters much. So information is nowadays like a food. You have a fast food, not unhealthy, I mean very unhealthy, and healthy food. So we take away the dozens of the information that are not relevant to our clients and provide a portal where you can find digest of legislative changes. we give them some stories from other similar entrepreneurs and businesses that they share their success and failures that are very important and very applicable in Kazakhstan. We give them the access to the business documents so that all forms are in one place, so that there's a single portal where you get the information. But is it enough nowadays? Not much. So I want you to, I hope translator will translate the video that I want to share. That's our successful clients who share their success stories. Okay, that was the success stories, but they have the common patterns. Number one pattern is that they say that it's important for us to locate our business in the relevant area. Number two is that it's important for us to know to be competitive from the payment perspective. Last but not the least, it's important to know the ability to pay the purchasing power of our potential consumers on the places where we place our businesses. That are B2C businesses. But where can you get this information? In Jusan, we take this challenge and we analyzed and we understood that actually we have this all information. We know how the payments, how much payments are done in certain businesses, where are the businesses are located, and what is the intensity of the business. So we have this big data. And nowadays, we share this big data with our clients so that we help them to succeed, so that all of their decisions are should be data-driven. So they take the decision not based on their intuition, but I know that entrepreneurs have a tremendous intuition spirit, but still we help them to validate or to justify their ideas with the numbers. So we developed a portal, which is the solution, excuse me, which is based on big data that I will also show you. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you very much. So, my key point was that we have to help our businesses to grow as a financial institution, not only with the facilities that we have with our products, but also with the services that are non-financial services, with the information and data, as we have it with us, and we strongly believe that our success is built by the success of our clients. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nurdavlet, for your so valuable speech, and we wish you successful activities in your plans. Thank you. Уважаемые участники.
Dear participants, I would like to give the next floor to Sergei Stanovkin, head of BBC Global News commercial representatives in Eurasia and big friend of Kazakhstan. This is a great communicator, specialist, professional who knows how to build relations between the state bodies, investment communities, and he made a lot for our country in this regard. So the floor is yours, Sergey. Thank you very much. These are very kind words, and I'm really trying to do my work the best way. Dear colleagues, dear friends, I'm glad that I have a lot of friends in Kazakhstan, and I'm trying to appreciate this and be useful. I would like to return to the topic of our session and say about global challenges, and then return to the first part of our session, because I paid attention that we talk about fragmentation. Do you know who deals with communication, doesn't pay attention to segmentation, because segmentation is everywhere, and the presentation that we have seen tells about segmentation. Globalization didn't finish for me, because globalization goes on, and it happened at the time when there are sanctions against North Korea. You can say that North Korea is a small country. Then sanctions started against Iran. That's a big country, big opportunities. But globalization continued. Now segmentation is about the sanctions against Russia. So the countries group that support these sanctions, and the countries that still did not decide or didn't express their position. So I would like to say about the globalization from one side, and from another side mention that the logo of the forum is the dialogue, global dialogue. If this is a global dialogue, these are global communications. But we talk about not segmentation, but communications and global dialogue. So we need global media platforms for that, because otherwise we will not make globalization and communications. From another side, there are general common human values that exist for 100 years, 1,000 years. We are still in the conditions where all the countries, all the companies strive to get the sympathies of the clients. So I wanted to show the example of Global Soft Power Index in 2022. The results were published during the summit. And I would like to emphasize once again that global impact defines the success or failure of a company in separate regions, in separate countries. And just in case we talked about big data, about the figures, I wanted to remember something interesting. And I remembered that 5 highly technological companies of the United States is equal to GDP of the majority of G20 country. I would like to remind you that it includes Russia. So globalization is not a part, is not over. It is difficult within the global competition conduct the communications. So that's why I just would like to pay your attention to the fact that we talk about New Kazakhstan, and do we need to make rebranding, reposition Kazakhstan, or just tell about Kazakhstan? So this is about the country and about the company. Separately, I would like to pay attention that the corporate branding is not that much in Kazakhstan. So a company makes product advertisement, but not the corporate branding. So they make associations related to their brands, to their products, but not with the company. So if we talk about global communications, we will have to look at the success stories, examples of success, and I will tell later about this. They will provide good results. Since we have little of time, and I was notified not to tell much, I have just 5 slides to express my thoughts when we talk about global challenges and opportunities.
But first of all, when we speak about stereotypes, you know, stereotypes, they exist not only at your place, in your country, but these stereotypes are also your stereotypes. You have them, and sometimes these stereotypes do not allow you to assess the situation in the right way. And you know, these stereotypes sometimes do not allow you to be the participants of global communications, global dialogue. Why? because now we have the forum. This is the second day of forum. But what will be after? What communication will be preserved? Or before the forum, what kind of communications we had before? You know, during plenary sessions, I heard the right words about environment, about sustainable development. But what about the dates? For example, Kazakhstan will have the forum in 2026. But what about this period before 2026? You know, in Uzbekistan, they will have two conferences connected with environmental issues. So right now, we need to see these communications not only within Kazakhstan, but also beyond Kazakhstan. This is from one side. On the other side, you have a big economy, I mean Kazakhstan has. And if you have big economy, of course you shall have big economic brands, and sometimes we do not see these brands. Each country is connected with some specific characteristics. You have to define what characteristics, what associations will be association with Kazakhstan. So these associations or these shall be connected with companies, with your brands. And then when we speak about informational field, you need to segment it. And here your global communication shall be segmented. This is a creative part, but also a technical part on the other side. And also one of the other comments is that Kazakhstan always say, or people in Kazakhstan, they always say, we do the PR. But you know there are two words, PR and advertising. Advertising is what you want to say, and PR is what other people want to know about you. This is a problem. You know, some journalists say that there are not good news, but you as a country shall learn to speak about your good news. I mean, Kazakhstan as a country, and I mean your Kazakhstani companies. I'm sure you will do it. You have a lot of positive things. You just need to do it right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sergey. As always, your speech is very relevant, very useful and beneficial for all of us. So, dear participants, with great pleasure, now I would like to give the floor to our next speaker, Mr. Daniil Ibraev, who's a good friend of our country, of our city, Astana. He has lots of friends all over the world, but this person, he has great experience, and I don't have enough time to tell all his titles and positions that he had. But I want to mention that Mr. Ibraev, he is the head of business club, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan Business Club. Could you please speak about the opportunities that we have now, and could you please speak about the perspective of cooperation between Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan at this regional level? Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to say that we have this business council jointly with National Chamber of Entrepreneurs, and I'm pretty sure that Mr. Batalov fully supports this idea. Right now, we are forming all these aspects that will enable us enable our bilateral cooperation. And we know that bilateral cooperation shall be built based on the context in the global area, based on some local issues. I think we will be able to have a lot in common.
Силердин маанайды көтөрүп мындай бир жакшы сөздөрдү айтыш үчүн бул жерге келдик. Дагы бир жол Казакстанга, Казак.
I also want to say that today we need to talk about future events. We need to be with each other. We need to cooperate with each other. So Mr. Stanovkin has also mentioned that we were discussing regionalization, globalization, and we need to note that we people, we dream for future. But if we take 50 years ago, we go back 50 years ago, I think that mankind was thinking about peaceful world without any competition, without any conflicts. And today, I think we are at the peak of this mountain. Today is a day that we have never had before, when the humankind is advanced and technological way. And I mean, we are ready to be in united global world with our own peculiarities, with some of our national approaches. But as a humanity, as a humankind, now it's the time we have to be united. So here you see the representative of 20 or 30 countries. You can see them by their national clothes and so on. And if we were able to not to compete, but to cooperate with each other in technological sphere, if we would be able to share with each other, to develop this world, then we would speak about globalization wave. So right now, unfortunately, we see that many countries and many companies, they have a bit different goals. We have lots of crisis situations. You were speaking about some restrictive measures, but it's not only for Russia. There are such restrictive measures all over the world, official and non-official. We see what happens at customs border. We see what happens in the world of technology, the world of science. We see that people competing for investments, but sometimes these bring damages to some countries. We also see the corporate relations. We understand that people can cooperate and would be able to develop, to reach new horizons, but instead we do different things. Yes, artificial intelligence is good, but for now, this artificial intelligence does not generate something new. This artificial intelligence generates based on what it has, but it learns from us. So we are, let's say we are making all these things. These are the real situations. That's why we see protectionism, regionalism in some positive way, and sometimes it goes against globalization. Yes, national residencies is important, and each person is a citizen of this or that country. And of course, the companies, based on their residences, want to be protected by the government, but of course the countries also shall enter new markets. And when they come to new markets, they face some other things, and we see this circle that sometimes prevents us from developing. We are trying. We know it. We think about it. We understand that we can do it. We create some, let's say, small unions where we also have lots of problems. For example, let's take Eurasian Economic Union or European Union. There are lots of unions, yeah? I can list them, but each of them has their own problems and they have their internal protectionism, and then they start to compete with each other on the global level. Therefore, I think we have to work, and so today we have lots of outstanding people. For example, our friend who's a Nobel laureate, who are thinking about this sustainable green development, who is thinking about these issues. I mean, we need to take into account the science, and we need to create the track. We need to understand that humankind or people live in their countries, but they also live on a global level. But speaking about our relations, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, we are countries that are alike. We have everything so that we would be able to develop our trade. Recently, people were saying, let us unite Almaty and Bishkek. It was just idea. We have about 2 million people here, and Almaty has a bit more than 2 million people. And I mean, there are also some suburban territories, about 4 or 5 million people. So, and the distance between these two cities is not very long, so that was an idea. Let's make it one conglomerate. Let's make it one territory, so that we would be able to develop trade and so that to invest this. We know that in economy there is such notion as a formula of big numbers or big digits. But again, even here we have these people that have the same history, that are like brotherly people. Still, I mean, we are trying to find some ways so that to have this free movement of goods, at least food products. We are now discussing these issues so that the food products would be moved around. I think we will be able to do it. We just need to do it step by step. And then speaking about business club, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan business club, I hope that I will see lots of people who would like to join us. So I call everybody, please join us, and all together we will be able to create the ways for the development. And in the global world, I think, yes, that's why we have such forums. For example, this case we have Astana International Forum. Recently we had Bishkek Investment Summit where the heads of state and the heads of government also participated. I think such platforms as this forum are organized so that we would be able to unite our efforts and to develop ourselves. Thank you. So, Mr. Daniil, thank you so much for your interesting work, for your active position. We wish you all the best in implementation of all of your plan. Thank you so much. Dear guests, dear colleagues, let me again thank our respected and distinguished speakers.
Please give a round of applause to our distinguished panel speakers and our wonderful moderator, Mr. Murat. So we have heard a lot of interesting insights today, both on global level and the regional level. And the important thing is, how do we align and what do we do about this? And I'm extremely pleased that our panel sessions were rich in content and even with very specific messages with the urge to action. And I'm happy to say that I think our panel session and the forum overall has fulfilled and delivered on its mission to be the global town hall, bringing people together, empowering the voices, and empowering ideas and urges to action. So thank you very much all again. Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much.
Now we will be moving on to the signing ceremony of the agreement on the establishment of the Kazakhstan-Saudi Arabia Business Council. And I would like to invite to the podium His Excellency Ahmed bin Ali Al-Dakhil, the Chief Executive Officer of Al-Rajhi International Investment Company, and Mr. Raimbek Batalov, the Chairman of the Presidium of the National Chamber of Entrepreneurs of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Atamikyan. Yes. His Excellency Ahmed bin Ali Al-Dakhil, the CEO of Al-Rajhi International Investment Company, and Mr. Raimbek Batalov, the Chairman of our National Chamber of Entrepreneurs, Atamikyan. Congratulations on signing the agreement. No. Dear ladies and gentlemen and distinguished speakers, I would like to invite you to the stage for the group photo as well. Уважаемые спикеры, уважаемые...
Dear speakers, dear moderators, I would like to invite you here to the stage for having the group photo.
Mr. Hussein, please. Thank you very much again, ladies and gentlemen, for taking active participation. And please, a round of applause to our speakers. Thank you.